Welcome to another review episode of Just One More Fix. This is James. With me in this episode is Lacey and Kurt.
Hey.
Hello.
You can find us online at justonemorefix.com or on Twitter at justonemorefix. If you like us, head over to iTunes or to Google Play and give us a rating and a comment. In this review episode, we're going to take a look at Fiasco. And now it's time to get a review fix.
You should quit with something. Drives you crazy.
Welcome to Just One More Fix. Like you heard, we're going to do review Fiasco today. So, just to let you guys know, in the episode that dropped this Wednesday, we announced our contest for giving away Fiasco. So if you hadn't heard, you can head to the website, justonemorefix.com, to see details. Basically, the long and short of it is, we want to grow our online community a little bit, and if you follow us on Twitter or join us on Facebook, on Twitter, we're at Just One More Fix, and on Facebook, we're Just One More Fix Podcast. If you follow us and like us and share our stuff on there, we'll enter you into a contest for the actual hard copy of Fiasco, and that's going to end on January 2nd, and we should make the announcement January 4th for that. For any other details, go to justonemorefix.com, and it'll be linked there under contest. I suppose I should probably link that in the show notes too. So,
moving. The decisions of the administration are final. See store for details. Some restrictions may apply. Void were prohibited. All that jazz.
Terms of use. Blah blah blah. All right.
See
so,
store for details.
We're just gonna jump right in here to Fiasco. Fiasco. Did we encounter this at Gen Con for the first time?
I encountered it here for the first time, which is kind of like saying Gen Con.
You just equated our gaming group with Gen Con. I like it.
We bought it at Gen Con for the first time, but this is something I actually had heard about before going to Gen Con.
Okay.
Not me.
So Fiasco is more of a story game, I would suppose.
Yes.
You could call this, as opposed to a regular role-playing game.
It's like a story game, like mated with a D&D random encounter table, and it had like a really interesting offspring.
It's basically like a Coen Brothers movie, where there's some kind of setup at the beginning, like a heist or whatever, and then
You have a plan
at
at the beginning.
Then something goes tragically wrong, and everything goes sideways, and everybody loses at the end. And that's basically the premise of Fiasco. So Fiasco is
Probably the best example is the movie Fargo. Most people
Fargo is
are
a great
familiar
example of
with
it.
that.
You know, I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, I mean, you've got your setup, you've got your plan, your caper.
Something goes terribly wrong.
Spoiler alert. It doesn't really go the way that the car guy plans.
And shenanigans ensue.
Yeah.
And it ends with a wood chipper.
So Fiasco is by Jason Morningstar. He's the guy that wrote the game, and it's produced by
Bully Pulpit.
Yeah, Bully Pulpit Games.
Yeah.
And we'll link that in the show notes if you guys want to check it out. So the way the game works, I guess we'll talk about the physicality of the book. The book is about 130 pages. It's really straightforward. There's not a lot of fluff in it. It does have some references to different books and movies and TV shows that kind of run along the way the game is designed to kind of run. It's pretty concise and straightforward, I would say. So the way the game works is
paperback, pretty straightforward. Yeah.
Yeah. Not a lot of fluff in there.
No art. I mean, there isn't a lot of really evocative art. I mean, there's just some filler art, I would call it.
So, but
maybe like a half to a third of it is actual rules mechanic, and the rest is setting up your scenarios.
Yeah, the play
examples.
Sets.
Yeah.
So the way it works is you get a pile of D6s, 2 of one color. We usually use black and white for positive and negative. You get 2 positive or white dice and 2 black dice or negative dice for each player at the table. So then you roll them all as one group and roll them out in the center, and then you have a playlist you get to choose from, and each die corresponds to like a there's broad categories and details, and they're numbered 1 through 6, and then you assign the dice to whatever details and specific categories you want.
And those will add some details to your setting, people within the setting, their relationships to each other, motivations of players, and things like that. So that's what those dice are for.
Right. So this basically all you need to run this is some D6s and some note cards. Between each player, there is a card, and on that card you put details of their relationship, basically, and all those details come from the dice. So this is a zero prep game, and every game technically is different because you're going to roll different dice, and even if you did by some miracle roll all the exact same numbers. Unless you choose to assign them to the exact same things, it's going to be a different game. Just to give an example here, we have the playset Main Street. So you have a relationship between each person at the table, and the relationships are defined on a card that goes in between you, and it defines your relationship. So the broad categories are like family, work, friendship, romance, crime, and community. And then once that broad category is assigned, then you assign a detail to it, and that defines the relationship between you and the person you're sitting next to. And you get to...
As characters.
Yeah, as characters.
Yeah.
And then you get to kind of add a little more fluff and detail to that, as you go.
And those are assigned around the table too. So you will not be personally defining the relationship that is between you and the person next to you.
Right.
Those relationships will be defined collectively by the people at the table.
It's almost kind of like a Mad Libs for crime caper
Right.
story. No, but with guidance. I mean, because obviously you're going to fall into patterns. The dice really help, I think, because you're rolling enough dice, you're going to get 1s and 6s and everything in between, that it just, I think, helps guide you through the process of creating something humorous.
So then in addition to the relationship, you get to define either a need, a location, or an object for each of those relationships that is somehow important to your relationship with that person. So if me and Kurt are crime partners, and we're going to do a bank heist, then you define a location, which could be the bank we're going to knock over, or it could be
Sally's Quick Mart, and now James and Kurt have to decide as together why Sally's Quick Mart is important to their relationship.
Right. Or it could be an object like some kind of a beater car that's going to obviously not start when we go to get away.
The getaway car.
Right, which is probably
77 Impala. Yeah.
It starts a good 45% of the time. Or maybe a crowbar or whatever it is, but those are all defined in there too, so you don't really have to come up with anything specific other than the little details to add to it to make the game interesting. And what I will say is all the play sets that I've seen are put together to where you could not play this game with conflict not built into it, because like the way when you put the relationships together and the objects and needs and all this kind of stuff, it's built into it. Like each playset is specifically designed to create some kind of a conflict.
And they all include the major tropes for that setting that you expect. So there's like a Western cowboy themed one. There's a Las Vegas, which is very much like playing, The Hangover,
right?
In game form, except this was, before. I suspect that maybe The Hangover was written after playing a game of Fiasco. There's a high school one. There's the Main Street ones. Main Street is like, that sort of small town shenanigans.
There was a mob one we played, which was fantastic.
So there are themes that everyone is basically familiar with if you've ever watched a movie or read a book ever.
Yeah.
These are common
any
themes.
movie, in fact, or any book. Also, the main book I think has 4 or 5 play sets in here, but also on Drive-Thru RPG and on the Bully Pulpit website, there are a ton of more playlists to add. So if you've played through the 5 in here and you're tired of playing them because you've played it 3 and 4 times or whatever on those playsets, there's a ton of new playsets out there. There's a small news channel one gone wrong that we played that was a lot of fun. It's like the news.
I wish I was there for that. One.
Like the news business is they're running out of money and you're trying to generate fake stories and stuff. So
it's like the real internet.
Yeah. So it was a lot of fun. Also, along with it, there's the Fiasco companion that
has several additional
more play sets and some additional rules and that kind of stuff you want to integrate into it. The way the gameplay is played is that you go around the table taking scenes, and it starts with Act 1, and I will choose. You have 2 options. If it's my turn, I get to choose to set the scene, which means I get to decide where I'm at and the characters that might be there and what I'm doing, or I get to choose to resolve the scene, and the other players around the table get to choose how to or what I'm doing, and they get to pick what the scene is, okay?
But you will decide when the scene ends and whether the outcome is good or bad for you.
So if you set the scene, you don't get to choose the outcome, and the outcome is either positive or negative. And if you choose to resolve the scene, then you get to choose how your scene ends, whether it's positive or negative.
So it's like it is a competitive, cooperative sort of. Yeah. No, because it's not like you're going to get to the finish line first. Nobody's going to win.
No, not
but you all win in losing, and just have that makes sense. I don't know if that sounds complimentary or not, but it's a glorious death.
It is a spectacular failure, I believe would be a great way to put it. Yeah. So what's interesting is as the game goes on, eventually the dice kind of pare down to where there might only be a couple positive outcomes and mostly negative, or vice versa.
Yeah.
So it makes it interesting. The other thing is as the game goes along, everybody has 2 scenes in Act 1, and then the tilt happens. And the tilt is the part of the movie where everything goes sideways. Like, whatever it was that you were doing, you're pulling the bank heist, you get in the bank, and you realize, oh, this isn't the T135 vault, it's a T136 vault, it's upgraded, we can't pick the lock, the explosives won't work, or whatever. Something in the plot just goes horribly wrong, and everybody's hosed,
when
essentially.
Bruce Willis is driving away from the getaway car and the gangsters walking across the street and they spot each other, you're
Right.
like, oh, tilt, and now it's done.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So then that happens, and in order to get those, you roll the dice you have at the table, and you consult the tilt table. Basically, that's the only other thing that you really need, and that's in the main book as well. And then you get to see how everything changes. Then you go into Act 2, which is where everybody gets 2 scenes again. You take dice away from the middle until the last die, and that's when everything, basically the reaction to what has gone horribly wrong, and it kind of winds up and then back down again. And that's pretty much the long and short of the game. At the end, you roll your dice to see, and you consult the table. You subtract your positive from your negative, whichever's bigger, and that dictates how horribly in the epilogue you get hosed, basically.
And then basically you just, at the end, you get to monologue what happens to your character based on that set of...
Right. So essentially,
things.
nobody really wins in this game. Everybody gets hosed.
Oh, but
for the
everybody,
most part.
it's the same. It's not the ending that it's not winning that you're going for. It's winning.
about telling the story.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
No.
So you have to kind of come into the game with that mindset to realize that everybody's going to get hosed, essentially, and it's just a fun experience to do. So, do you guys any high points of this game like you think we didn't hit on yet?
Okay, high points of this game for me are that the outcome is I don't want to say is known, but it's the ride that you're going for.
Right.
And it's one of those things that you don't play with people for the first time if you're just getting to know them.
I entirely disagree.
Really?
Oh, yeah. We've had some great fun.
Have
with
you?
the Total Strangers.
Okay, because I was just thinking this would be fantastic. I mean, with people I know, it was fantastic. But so tell me.
I think it would be even better, actually, to play with people you're hoping to get to know.
Well, it'll either drive them off or you'll become best friends.
Right, exactly.
Okay, there you go.
This is
how
a
it's
screening.
all right.
We
I
run
stand
it as a
corrected.
screening process.
Yeah, if you sit down to play it with people that are sitting down with the intention to have fun and enjoy it, and they don't clam up, that would be the one play where I would think it would be not be fun with strangers, is if they clammed up and weren't embracing what the theme of the game and sort of going all in, right?
So you're saying you need to set expectations at the beginning of the game.
Oh my goodness, it's like a theme.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. I just making sure.
And I think it's like a great way to introduce people to games, really, because it's very simple, it's very straightforward. There's not a lot of rules that you have to look up and know, you know what I mean? It's just acting, essentially. And
This is not D&D. This is not World of Darkness.
No.
This is not Dark Heresy. This is a storytelling game, a GM-less storytelling game. So
Yeah.
I guess
it's
we
all
didn't hit
about,
that note yet.
it's
no
all
GM.
about taking the turns. There is no GM. Very little setup and prep required. Basically,
Yeah.
just one person needed to read the rules beforehand,
And I can
which
tell
you
you-
could do in less than a day.
Even then,
we played this with Lacey's mom, who's never played a role-playing game at all, and she had
had a great
fun. She
time.
had a great time. And but it's because you've seen those movies and you're just like, oh, this is such a wreck.
you can see
know
it
what I
coming.
mean?
Yeah.
exactly.
Now, if I remember correctly, this is an over 18 sort of property primarily, or
So that's something to mention.
There are some play sets that are actually more designed, and I think it tells you in the book, some that are designed
A little
more
softer,
for
I guess you might
a
say.
softer audience,
Yeah.
and then there's some
Also,
that
if you
are
said-
designed with over 18 in mind.
Yeah,
for sure.
if you tell people kind of to dial it back and keep it clean, you could do that. Something else that is interesting in the companion, there is a separate tilt table. There's an alternate tilt table to where it softens it a little bit, so it would be more appropriate for like high schoolers or whatever. To where the tilt table isn't so drastic and
because I remember there were some
It
more
softens
adult themes when I was thinking about
Yeah.
doing this with the high school group. I read through it. When I really read through all the tables, I was like, I'd have to do some pretty heavy editing to make sure that.
some of that does depend on the play set.
Yeah, a lot of it
And
is play
some
set.
some of that adult color is added in by the people that are playing
Yeah.
the game.
Well,
too. It's
that
not
is-
always
yeah.
necessarily
That is how it
inherently
works because
stacked in the play
you get
set.
to define other people's relationships if you want to. So it is wildly fun to just go crazy,
nuts.
and have
Alright,
a good
yeah.
time. Because most people, when they sit down to play this game, they're sitting down with that expectation that it's just going to be a train wreck, and let's go along for the ride and see how far we can ride this mother.
Yeah,
So-
drive it like a rental.
That's right.
To paraphrase.
So with that, what do you guys? I mean, like, I think we hit the high points of the game, and there's a lot of drama that happens. It's built into it. The conflict is built into it, but there's no real conflict resolution. Like, I don't roll a d6 to see if I win. You just do that out through the storytelling, right? So, are there any drawbacks or low points of this game that you don't really care for?
I don't know if not care for would be the right term, because, you don't criticize a screwdriver because it makes a poor hammer. No, you know what I mean?
That's very right. That's very true.
Okay. So this is a great party game to go through a couple of times. You're not going to be playing a 2-year-long campaign with this.
Oh, my God.
Nobody would survive. The characters would be
the
dead
biggest
anyway.
disaster ever.
It's a rolling disaster. It is a great party game. I guess to get you, I've not used it with people I don't know. I only typically use it with people I know. But I want to say that's a drug, but it's a limitation.
Right.
That's a thing that it's good for what it's good for, and what it's good for is having a great time going through it a couple of times in an evening. I can't see playing it for like 6 hours straight.
Oh, no. Well, I don't think it's designed to, like, most of our games, they last, what, a couple hours, maybe 2 hours? Might be.
I think 2 hours would probably be on the high side.
On the high side, yeah. I would agree.
Yeah, so it's a good icebreaker. Maybe if you were going to do an RPG, after this, it'd be a great way to ferret out the people that you don't really want to game with, because it's going to bring them out,
right?
Or drive them away.
I do think that this game can be a little difficult to kind of wrap your head around the concept initially. Sometimes it can be hard to figure out, okay, well, what do I want this scene to be? Because it's not necessarily, when you set the scene, it's not necessarily what happens right after what happened before.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be chronological.
You can jump in time, forwards
Tarantino
and backwards.
Editing. Okay.
Yeah,
right.
and so that can be a little tricky to kind of get a handle on at first. So I think maybe if you have a mix of people that have played it before and people that haven't played it before, you'll probably end up with a better Fiasco game, because they have that kind of example to see ahead of time. Because the first couple times we played it, it was a little sticky because none of us had played it before.
I would say it doesn't have a GM, but it needs to have maybe a mediator, might be the better term for it, to kind of
a game facilitator,
right? To show people how it works and to walk people through what's happening. So I agree with that very much. The only limitation for me is, as time has gone by, I feel like I've had my fun with the playsets that are in the book and the companion that we have. But I will say, with the addition of the other playsets that they've put out there, we've played through several of those and have had a great time. So it's sort of like the game that keeps on growing, because it doesn't take any. And there's fan-made playsets that are out there that are put together pretty well. It's really simple and straightforward to do. And I guess while the premise is the same, the playsets are so drastically different from one another, it kind of keeps it fresh.
Yeah, I mean, it's as many story types as there are out there.
Yeah,
and like I said, it's something you play for a couple hours for a party and evening, and then you'd want to move on to something else. Your Catan.
Well, the other thing that I like about it too is maybe it's one of those nights you all sit down at the table and you've been
what do you want to play?
Shooting the breeze for an hour, and now you're taking the 45-minute argument to figure out what everybody wants to play, or
maybe somebody's late to get there.
Yeah, or somebody's late to get there. So it's good for okay. So why don't we play Fiasco? And if you guys are still up for something after that, then we'll go back to that. And if everyone's calling on after that, then that's fine too, because everybody's had that chance to role play, and it is a lot of fun. So it's kind of almost like a light game. Something
that I like it for is that exact situation you're talking about, but then it sort of gets to role playing gears, moving and working, so that when you are done playing it, if you go into a role-playing game, everybody's already, amped up and ready to, to go, because it's different playing this than it is playing like a game of Catan or a game of Mansions of Madness or whatever.
Or Arkham Horror.
Right.
There's also not 45 minutes to tear down.
Right on. All right, so
you could play a round of Fiasco while one person sets up
Arkham Horror. Yeah. No, not to rip on Arkham Horror. I love Arkham Horror. However, I also like my automobile. It doesn't mean I want to tear it down and put it back together. Okay.
Right on. So Fiasco, we like this game.
We do.
Yes.
Right on. So how do I? It's a lot of fun. So it's a great way to introduce people to gaming as well. I think if you have people that are kind of interested in gaming but haven't taken the plunge yet, or people that you think might be interested in gaming and you want to find a way to kind of segue them into it, it's a good introduction to
a
role-playing.
Gateway.
Yeah, a gateway.
One might say.
So Fiasco, check it out. If you don't have it yet,
then enter our contest and you could win it.
There you go. Right on. So good night.
So there.
Fiasco.
Play it.
Later. Thanks for listening. This has been another episode of Just One More Fix. Music has been provided by Kevin MacLeod. You can find him at incompetech.com. You can find us at justonemorefix.com and follow us on Twitter at Just One More Fix.